The movie starts with two hunters, Rex and Oaken, tracking a bull across a remote island. But right away, something feels seriously wrong. The bull suddenly freaks out like it senses danger before the hunters do, then bolts deep into the jungle. Rex and Oaken chase after it, but both of them suddenly freeze in place. Standing right in front of them is a gigantic snake. And this thing isn't just huge, it's absolutely monstrous. The two hunters stare at the creature in complete shock. But instead of running away, greed takes over. They realize that if they can somehow capture this giant snake, they could become rich overnight. Yeah. Worst idea ever. Within seconds, the massive snake attacks. Rex doesn't even get time to react before the creature completely overpowers him. Oaken watches in pure horror and instantly runs for his life. He sprints back toward the shore, hoping to escape using their boat, but the violent storm has already destroyed it. A few hours later, a helicopter lands on the same island carrying a team of researchers led by Professor Min. Their mission is to study prehistoric drawings carved into the island's ancient rocks. After dropping them off, the helicopter leaves and plans to return later to pick them up. The group begins setting up camp for the night. Professor Min tells Jason and Aaron to collect firewood while the others prepare the campsite. As darkness slowly covers the island, the professor explains their plan for the next morning. At sunrise, they'll head deeper into the jungle toward the research site. But suddenly, they hear movement coming from the trees. Everyone turns toward the sound and sees Oaken stumbling out of the jungle, barely alive. Desperate for help, Oaken asks for water and explains that he came to the island with his partner, who supposedly died after being bitten by a snake. He also mentions that their boat was destroyed during the storm. Notice something strange? He carefully avoids mentioning the giant snake. Professor Min tells him that a helicopter is scheduled to arrive in 2 days, so he can leave the island with them. Oaken says some of his equipment is still out in the jungle, so he promises to go back for it in the morning before disappearing once again into the darkness. The next morning, the research team prepares to continue their expedition. But everything changes when Professor Min suddenly gets bitten by a spider. Within minutes, he starts feeling extremely sick. Oaken arrives just in time to examine the bite, and the look on his face immediately changes. He explains that the spider's venom is extremely dangerous, and without treatment, the professor may not survive longer than 36 hours. At that moment, the expedition turns into a desperate fight for survival. The group realizes they need to get off the island immediately. But when Malin contacts the helicopter operator Rita, she tells him the weather is way too dangerous. Powerful winds and heavy storms are making it impossible for any helicopter to safely reach the island right now. Even so, Rita promises she'll keep trying to find a way. With time running out, Oaken tells the group about a rare orchid hidden deep inside the jungle. According to him, the flower can slow down the spread of the venom and give the professor enough time to survive. Left with no other option, the team decides to search for the orchid. Benji stays behind with Professor Malin while the others follow Oaken into the jungle. Back at the camp, Benji attaches a camera to a drone and begins recording footage of the island. Meanwhile, the rest of the group spends hours trekking through the brutal jungle heat. Jason slowly starts falling behind, completely exhausted. Allison warns him to keep drinking water before the humidity drains him even more. After a long and difficult hike, Oaken finally leads them to the location of the rare orchid. But the moment they arrive, everyone freezes in shock. The tree holding the orchid is completely covered in snakes. No one wants to get anywhere near it. But Oaken reminds them that without the plant, the professor will die. And just when things can't get any worse, the giant snake suddenly returns. The massive creature slowly slithers toward them, instantly sending the entire group into panic. Everyone takes off running as the enormous boa chases them through the jungle. Eventually, they stop to catch their breath, completely terrified. Grace explains that the snake is nearly 60 feet long. The largest boa ever recorded was only around 40 feet, meaning this creature shouldn't even exist. Then they realize something even worse. Jason is gone. The group starts yelling his name, But there's no answer. Earlier, weakened by exhaustion, Jason had fallen behind and gotten lost in the jungle. Alone and terrified, he suddenly hears movement nearby. He quickly hides behind some bushes, and then he sees it. The giant boa slowly moved toward him. A moment later, the entire jungle falls silent. Back at the helicopter station, Rita desperately calls every pilot she can find, begging someone to fly to the island. But one by one, they all refuse because of the storm. Finally, a retired pilot steps forward. After hearing the situation, he agrees to help. Deep in the jungle, the group argues about whether they should go back and search for Jason. That's when Oaken reveals carrying powerful tranquilizer darts strong enough to knock out even massive animals. Aaron says that since they're going back anyway, they might as well grab the orchid for the professor too. Allison checks her flare gun and realizes she only has 3 flares left. Meanwhile, Grace thinks the whole plan is completely insane. She begs everyone to leave before they end up just like Jason. But there's one major problem. Without Oaken, they have no idea how to survive or escape this jungle alive. So, despite their fears, the group decides to head back toward the tree. When they arrive, Allison and Oaken take defensive positions while Adam climbs up to retrieve the orchid. But before he can reach it, the giant boa suddenly appears again. Allison fires a flare at the monster, but misses. Luckily, Oaken shoots the snake with a tranquilizer dart, and the massive creature finally collapses unconscious. For a brief moment, everyone believes they're safe. But then something absolutely horrifying happens. Jason's dead body suddenly slides out of the snake's mouth. Shocked, Adam loses his grip and falls from the tree as dozens of smaller snakes begin crawling toward the group from every direction. Completely terrified, they abandon the orchid and run for their lives. Later, after stopping to regroup, Oaken reveals another plan. He pulls out sticks of dynamite and says they can simply blow the tree down instead of climbing it. Most of the group immediately hates the idea, but Oaken insists the tranquilizer was strong enough to put 50 elephants to sleep, meaning the giant snake shouldn't wake up anytime soon. Grace strongly disagrees. She warns everyone that they need to leave immediately before they all die there too. That's when Oaken reveals another serious problem. Hunters have deadly traps spread all across the jungle, and without him, escaping the island would be nearly impossible. Even after hearing that, the others still decide to try leaving without him. Back at the camp, Benji reviews the drone footage with Professor Malin, and for the first time, they finally get a clear look at the massive creature on screen. The professor can barely believe his eyes. According to him, this isn't just a giant boa. It's something far more terrifying. A Megaboa even larger than the ancient Titan boa itself. And suddenly, this island becomes way more terrifying. Allison, Grace, and the others desperately search for their old campsite. But instead of finding a way out, they accidentally stumble into one of the hunters' traps hidden deep in the jungle. And then they notice something even worse. Snakes. Dozens of them hang from the trees above. The creatures slowly begin moving toward them, forcing the terrified group to run for their lives once again. With no other option left, they finally return to Oaken, realizing he's the only person who actually knows how to survive on this island. Together, they head back to the orchid tree where the giant Megaboa is still lying unconscious. Or at least, that's what they believe. Oaken attaches dynamite to the tree trunk so nobody has to climb it again. Moments later, they detonate the explosives, and the entire tree comes crashing down along with the snakes covering it. But as the smoke clears, everyone suddenly realizes something horrifying. The Megaboa is gone. The tranquilizer has worn off. Allison quickly grabs the orchid from the fallen tree, but before anyone can react, the massive snake suddenly strikes back and attacks Aaron. The group immediately runs for their lives as the monster chases them once again through the jungle. During the escape, they discover a cave and rush inside to hide. At the same time, back near the camp, Professor Min studies the island map and discovers something interesting. An old laboratory hidden somewhere nearby. He becomes convinced the others are probably heading there for shelter, so he and Benji decide to follow them. Inside the cave, Grace notices ancient drawings covering the walls. The paintings show enormous snakes shedding their skin while ancient tribes attack them during that vulnerable moment. That detail becomes extremely important later. But before they can think about it any further, movement suddenly appears all around them. Huge spiders begin crawling through the cave, including one absolutely gigantic spider that sends everyone into complete panic. Allison instantly fires both of her remaining flares at the creature, setting it on fire and giving the group a chance to escape the cave. Unfortunately, the nightmare waiting outside is even worse. The Megaboa is already there, waiting for them. The giant snake suddenly turns its attention toward the spider instead, giving the group just enough time to escape unnoticed. While the monstrous creature focuses on its new prey, Allison, Grace, and Oaken sprint deeper through the jungle. After running for their lives, they finally reach an abandoned laboratory. Outside the facility, they notice a zipline tower along with a strange pool releasing thick clouds of smoke. Oaken explains that the pool is filled with highly corrosive acid, although nobody really knows why the scientists built it there in the first place. Inside the lab, the atmosphere feels eerie and abandoned. Allison searches through the supplies and discovers several knives along with strange eggs stored inside glass containers. But suddenly, dozens of snakes begin crawling out from the cabinets. The group desperately tries to fight them off, but the snakes just keep coming. With no other option left, Allison grabs fire to scare them away. Huge mistake. The flames spread across the laboratory within seconds, and soon the entire place is burning completely out of control. As thick smoke fills the building, it ends up attracting the Megaboa directly toward them. The gigantic creature surrounds the laboratory, trapping everyone inside. That's when Oaken makes a bold decision. He tells Allison and Grace to escape using the zipline while he distracts the monster. Allison refuses to leave him behind, but Oaken calmly explains that this isn't a sacrifice because he plans to kill the creature himself. The three rush outside as Oaken confronts the Megaboa head-on. But despite all his weapons and experience, he barely manages to slow the monster down. Meanwhile, Allison and Grace climb up the zipline tower. Oaken runs toward them while the giant snake crashes right behind him. At the very last second, all three grab onto the zipline and slide across the massive gap. But halfway through, the Megaboa suddenly catches Oaken. The gigantic creature drags him straight down into the acidic pool below. Oaken disappears beneath the smoke along with the snake itself. A few moments later, Professor Malin and Benji arrive at the scene and are left completely shocked when they see the massive creature floating beneath them. Even Allison and Grace can hardly believe they survived. But then suddenly the body starts moving. The acid didn't kill the Megaboa at all. Its thick outer skin protected it from the acid right in front of everyone's eyes. The creature slowly begins shedding its damaged skin before emerging alive once again. And now, it's more furious than ever. The snake traps Professor Malin and Benji while Allison and Grace desperately search for a way to stop it. That's when Grace suddenly remembers the ancient cave paintings. The ancient tribe knew that the only time the creature became vulnerable was during the skin-shedding process. This is their only chance. Allison and Grace grab their knives and begin attacking the snake's freshly exposed skin. Unlike before, the blades finally slice through the creature, and it starts violently thrashing around in pain. Furious, the Megaboa suddenly lunges at Grace and coils tightly around her body. Everything seems hopeless, but in one last desperate move, Grace drives the knife straight into the monster's head. The giant snake finally collapses for good, and somehow, Grace manages to survive. With the danger finally over, the group quickly crushes the rare orchid and gives it to Professor Malin. Little by little, his condition starts getting better, and right on cue, the rescue helicopter finally arrives on the island. The survivors board the helicopter and leave the nightmare behind them. Or at least that's what they believe. Because in the final scene, another enormous Megaboa emerges from the jungle and slowly begins devouring the dead snake's body. Meaning this island is hiding far more monsters than anyone ever imagined. And honestly, some places are better left undiscovered. With this, the story ends here.